Previously on Higurashi When They Cry console arcs.
さ、ちゃんと鬼が背番号の数字を読み上げたか、リカちゃんに判断してもらう。リカちゃんの言うことにはみんな従うこと。これなら誰も文句言ったりしないでしょ。
了解なのです。まだちょっと調子が良くなかったから、ちょうど良かったのです。
Now that she mentions it, her complexion does look a little pale.
大丈夫ですの、リカ。見ているだけなら平気なのです。サトコは僕の分までファイト王なのですよ。
リカの分まで頑張ったら私の相手になれる人間など銀河系には存在しなくなってしまいますわ。
Saka let out a boisterous, energetic laugh as she said that. Rika-chan clapped her hands together when she saw that.
宇宙最強コンビなのです。僕たちがタッグを組めば天下無双、元気爆発なのですよ。ニパー。
I don't quite understand the meaning of that, but regardless, that's some impressive self-confidence. Somehow, I started to feel uncomfortable. The Mion I've known until now was a little rough with her language, and sometimes took a stance that could easily be misunderstood. But deep down, she was a really kind-hearted and thoughtful girl. So, even though we were all supposed to play aggressively in our club activities, I think she still ought to be cognizant of the position the younger students are in. But this time, it was weird. It seemed like she was bullying them just to flaunt her power. I'd never seen a Mion like this before.
ひょっとしてシオン。いえ、そうでもなさそうなのです。
I immediately struck down that thought. Indeed, Shion did occasionally go to school disguised as Mion, but that was generally with the intention of investigating the secrets of Hinamizawa and the Sonozaki family. Given what I saw yesterday, that was probably not the case. Plus, this iteration of Keiichi and Rika should be able to easily recognize the difference between Mion and Shion. In which case, that girl is actually Mion? There's more and more I don't understand. There's also the subject of new club members. Normally she would have welcomed anyone who wanted to participate, without making them go through an entrance test like this. Plus, she always tried to choose games that everyone could enjoy equally, setting up an environment where beginners could easily enter. That was our rec class representative, Mion Sonozaki.
この世界は一体。
No need for people who can't give their all. Now the question is, they can't produce results. Games are only about winning. It's boring if you just lose. Well, they're not wrong about any of these things, Keiichi. At least at face value. Bullshit, 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 bullshit! What's with that? That's just like the old days when I was back in Tokyo. Results are everything. Anything is fine if you to put yourself above others. So just focus on winning and being superior, devoting all your time to that, burying yourself in it. Before long, I lost sight of what I was fighting for. It lost its significance and was just left hanging there. In the end, was the competition even fun? No, I don't give a damn about my past. I've already cast it aside. But more importantly, more than anything else, I can't stand that my friends Mion, Reina, and Sadako are the ones saying these things. After all, I'm right about this, aren't I? If someone can't give it their all, I'll support them until they can stand back up. If they're feeling discouraged, I'll lend them a shoulder and tell them to do their best and have fun. If they can't get results, I'll stay beside them until they can. If they want to give up, we should lower the hurdle and give them the joy of reaching the goal. And so, what if there is someone who can't win? That's nonsense! If you can't win alone, work with someone else. And if that's not enough, bring 4 times as many. Then, he believed in their potential and stood up to his friends. he chose to reach a hand out to them. It wasn't the grace of a higher being. It wasn't cheap sympathy. It was kind, but strong encouragement from deep in his heart. So, everyone was able to get up again. They weren't forced into it. They did it of their own volition. They regained the will to fight.
やっぱりそれでこそ圭一なのです。
A magician of words and of rousing your spirit. That never changes. No matter the time, no matter the place, Keiichi never changes. He's like war in that respect. His strong convictions spin around and go out of control, which certainly can lead to tragedy. Still, Keiichi continued fighting fate until the very end. And because of his strength, the people around him simply can't ignore him. Deep down, I believe that.
圭一、あなたなら見せてくれますですか？不愉快な時間を打ち破るちっぽけな奇跡を。圭一くん、邪魔するとレナもちょっとだけ怒るよ。
そいつは面白いな。怒ったレナもプリチーだから目に焼き付けておきたいぜ。
It's not green. It's far scarier than that.
そう。選んだね。それじゃ、行くよ。
Reina's eyes sharpened and turned deep red. It felt like there was an intense pressure on my legs. No, my entire body was frozen. I couldn't move. The light in her eyes was strong enough to pin an enemy down. And then...
勝者。
Huh?
圭一。それと下級生チーム。
Right before our eyes, Rika-chan kicked the can herself. As I stood there stunned, she turned to me with a broad smile.
リカちゃん？
おめでとうなのですよ、圭一。あなたの勝ちなのです。
あ、いや、けど。
3人以外の誰かが蹴ったら、圭一たちの勝ち、とミーも言いました。だから、僕が蹴飛ばしても、誰も文句は言えないのです。ですよね、ミー。
She's got you there. Mion made a sour face at that blunder. But it quickly transformed into a bitter smile, and then to a proper smile.
おめでとう、ケイちゃん。あんたの勝ちだよ。長らくこの学校のクラス委員長を務めさせていただきました。私、園崎ミヨンですが、今日限りに委員長の座を引退したいと思います。
Everyone cried out in shock. That's right. Mion is our leader. Our leader is Mion. That fact was synonymous with the school itself. And yet, Mion wanted to step down as class representative?
ミオン、何考えてんだよ。冗談だったらタチが悪すぎるぞ。
いや、冗談でもなく本気も本気なんだけど。
本気だったらなお悪いわ。いくら新入部員の受け入れに反対してたからって、そんなことで誰もお前のことを悪く思ったりしない。だから。
ケイちゃん、ちょっと黙って最後まで聞いて。お願い。
Mion waited for the restless younger students to calm down, then continued. No matter how much I think about it, I don't understand. Why? Why is Takano our... Mio Takano, commander of the Mountain Dogs, the Special Forces unit keeping watch over me. And the true culprit who killed me. Simmering black emotions came back to me when I thought of back then. I want to release the murderous rage pulling in the bottom of my chest. Suddenly, I looked at the desk. The syringe that was just administered to Sadako was laying on the silver tray, shining brightly. Right there, right now, I could quietly approach Takano. Don't do it. If I grabbed the syringe from this desk, took aim while she was defenseless, and plunged it into her neck to send air into her blood vessels, then I'm sure...
Baka.
I shook my head to stave off those brief dark thoughts. No matter how gentle she acts, Takano is the commander of the Mountain Dogs. A soldier. Even if I took her by surprise, she should be able to easily repel an attack from a child. Since I'm unarmed, she'd be a fair match for me. At any rate, I'd just be speeding up the hands of the clock of hell approaching the day of my death. Plus, why did Takano want to kill me in the first place? And what will happen to Hinamizawa after I die? I need to know at least that much. So until then, I need to refrain from doing anything hasty. Unfortunately.
ほら、リカ。やっぱり置き去りにするつもりだったのでございますわね。
Now listen here, Rika.
間に合ったから OK なのです。一緒に行くのですよ、ミパー。
As I said that, I dodged Sadako, who had come flying out of the entrance. I could see Irie behind Takano, so he must have finished his phone call.
そんなに急がなくてもまだ十分間に合いますよ。
部活の先輩としてはやはり一番乗りして皆さんを歓迎するのが筋でございましょう。何事も初めが肝心ですわ。
早く行って歓迎トラップを仕掛けるつもりなのです。
あんまりやりすぎないようにね。新部員歓迎が退部者送迎になっては寂しいでしょうから。
そのあたりは加減いたしますわ。さあ行きましょう、リカ。圭一さんに遅れをとっては松代までの恥ですわよ。
ではまた来週なのです。ペコリ。
I lightly bowed my head as I said that, then turned around. I sensed a hint of sadness on Irie's face in the corner of my view, but I did my best to ignore it. Because the person standing beside him was Takano. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi and Necry console arcs. So, we've got our plan of attack, more or less, at least on the opening stages. When it comes to how to deal with how to at least prepare to deal with Takano. Let's see if Keiichi will actually be willing to hear out what Rika has to say.
じゃあ母さん行ってくれよ。
あ、ケイチ、ちょっと待って。
Uh-oh, she's straining. I put my shoes on at the foyer, but Mom stopped me just as I opened the door. I looked back wondering what it might be, and Mom came out of the kitchen holding a huge bag of rice.
それは?
A huge bag of rice!
米袋よ。見てわからない。
No, that's not what I meant.
いくらあなたのお祝いでも、ただ招かれるだけじゃ失礼でしょ。だからこれ持って行きなさい。
これって。
Mom forced the bag upon me without saying another word. I instinctively held it toward my chest, but it was so unexpected that I started to lean forward. So heavy! What is this? This thing is completely packed.
こんなのどうやって持っていけってんだよ。俺自転車なんだぞ。
平気平気。あなたの自転車のカゴならちゃんと入るでしょ。
it will unbalance the bike because you got all that extra weight leaning on the forward on it.
ああ、袋三重にしてるから破れる心配はいらないわよ。
Is it my imagination, or are we worried about completely different things?
ほら、シャキッとしなさい、シャキッと。委員長でしょ。
She pushed on my back with tremendous force, and I choked for just a second. I suddenly turned back and glared, intending to tell her off, but when I saw her huge smile, I lost the will to say anything. Weakling.
じゃあ行ってきます。
車に気をつけるのよ。
If you're worried about something like that, don't make me carry this heavy thing. I badmouthed her in my mind, but seeing my mom so happy actually made this feel okay. Thinking about it, it was a completely new experience seeing everyone so confident in me for becoming the class rep. I'm sure Mom has a lot of things on her mind. Probably. Thanks, Mom. The summer sun was shining brightly in the clear blue sky. I continued pumping the pedals and tightly encircling the handles to keep the cargo in my front basket from falling out of balance. Sweat gently trickled down my forehead. The footpath between the fields was unpaved and full of exposed pebbles. Even when I rode perfectly straight, the bike still lightly shook. Today is Sunday. Mion proposed that we have a celebration at the Furude Shrine grounds in honor of me becoming a class rep. The attendees include all the newly instated club members, basically the whole class, and all the old club members. In other words, the entire class. And Mion was shrewd enough to convince the Sonozaki family to go all out, providing meat and fish for us. Well, this is a school-related event, and Chi-sensei and the principal will be there too, so I had to come wearing my uniform. Feels a little stiff, but I guess it's okay. Reina and Mion had already arrived at our usual meeting spot.
遅いよ、ケイちゃん。委員長は先に到着して待ってるもんでしょ。
お前の時はどうだったんだよ。
過去は振り返らない。前を見なさい、前を。
I see what you're trying to do here, Mion, and I will not let you deflect from this. She has a comeback for everything. Although I'm probably going to be hearing this class rep spiel for a while.
あれ、ケイちゃん、その前かごの袋は何？お米？
ああ、国産最高級米？すごい量だね。すごいすごい。
言うな。何も聞くな。
It would be too much of a pain to explain. I bluntly held up the front of the bag. What would be painful about explaining it? Just simply say, my mom forced this upon me and wants me to feed it to all of you. There you go! Problem solved!
ケイちゃん、別に気を利かさなくてもいいよ。ケイちゃんは主賓なんだからさ。それに、ご飯も多めに準備してあるから大丈夫だって。
いや、そういうつもりじゃ。
まあ、いっか。それじゃ、早く行こうよ。みんな待ってるからさ。
おう、盛大に食うぜ、飲むぜ。
大勢でバーベキューなんて楽しそう。なんだかワクワクドキドキだよ。
The three of us continued making a fuss like that while we rode our bikes to the Furude Shrine. It's been a while since I visited the Furude Shrine, back when Reina and Mion invited me on a tour of Hinamizawa. The grounds are spacious, and the shrine has a calming atmosphere. And above all, the view from the top of the hill is inspiringly beautiful. It's also a great place to have a good time with the whole class. We parked our bikes at the stone steps in front of the shrine. There were quite a few bikes and cars there, as to be expected, since the whole class was here. Huh? Cars?
ミオン、今日のパーティーは父兄も参加なのか？
うん。バーベキューだと火を使ったりするから、大人同伴でなきゃ後々面倒でしょ。 だから君吉のおじいちゃんにお願いして人を集めてもらったんだ。
君吉のおじいちゃんって村長さんか？へえ。
She's even able to influence the mayor and gather adults. That's Sonozaki air, all right. Am I really fit to be Mion's successor? When it comes to personal connections and things like that, there's a huge difference between us.
大丈夫だってケイちゃんなら。今はともかく何年かすればきっと鶴の一声で人が集まるようになるって。
Though I was lost in thought, I came back to my senses when Mion suddenly laughed at me like she could read my mind. Well, that's fine. I'm just getting started as class rep. I just need to build up my own class rep character. Even from the stone steps, I could hear noisy voices coming from the shrine grounds. There were, of course, the cheers of children, but I heard the laughter of adults mixed in as well. It sounded really lively.
もう始まってるみたいだよ。早く行かないと。
始まってて。あれ？主賓が来てから始める約束だったはずなんだけど。
ミオンさん？
Uh-oh, trouble? Just then, Sadako and Rika-chan, who had apparently arrived before us, came rushing down the stone steps, waving at us.
おう、サトコ。さすがに早いな。
ごめん遅くなって。ケイちゃんがさ。
それどころではございませんわ。
Yep, it's trouble.
とんでもびっくりに大変なのです。
What? Is it Ushi? He is big, and he does have a habit of surprising people. Sadako and Rika-chan rushed over to us in a panic and interrupted Mion's greeting.
どうしたのさ、二人とも。なんかあったの？
そのセリフはリボンとのしをつけてそっくりお返しいたしますわ。
サトコ、リボンとのしは和洋折衷すぎて合わないぞ。
そうだよ、さとこちゃん。のしをつけて縛るのは水切りって紐で。
何をのんきに冠婚葬祭の一般常識をお話ししてるのでございますの？
Took the words right out of my mouth.
そんな話をしている場合ではありませんのよ。
Wait, wasn't Sadako the first to mention seaweed?
とにかくミオンさん、ちょっと来てくださいませ。
ちょっとそんな引っ張らないで。
ケイイチも来るのです。
え、俺も？
来なければ一生後悔すると思うのです。
After that outrageous one-liner, Rika-chan gave me a nipa for usual smile. It's as she always says, I can't afford not to go. Ren and I looked at one another, and followed Rika-chan up the stone steps. Then...
は？
これはどういうことなんだろう、太郎。
Ren and I were stunned once we saw the state of the shrine grounds. Why? What's wrong with it? It looks fine to me. Looking around, there were people, and even more people? Must be the ghostly kind, because I can't see any. There were a lot of kids from our class, of course, but there were even more adults. There were a whole bunch of other kids with faces that looked familiar. Wait, are those angel mort waitresses out there in the crowd, helping out the barbecue? Well, dang. Looks like the Sonozaki family really is pulling out all the stops for this. No way. Then... Hey, I remember you.
ふざけぶれ！亀田くん！
The first person to dig into the dessert selection was that weird pitcher, Kameda-kun. Which means, the kids around him are from the Okinomiya Titans?
どうして亀田くんがここに？
いやあ、今日は K を祝うパーティーが開かれるとファイターズの連中から聞いて、心の友としてはぜひとも総出で出席しなければと駆けつけたわけっす。
それだけの理由でか？
いやー、実は今日デザートフェスタだったらしいんだけど、こっちのお祝いの手伝いのため突然中止って言われて、そりゃもう暴れて騒いで泣いてわめいですがりついたっすよ。
言ってて恥ずかしくないか？
そしたらオーナーさんの計らいで場所をこっちに移してくれることになったんなりよ。さすがは我が心のふるさとの親分なり。
にょりーん。普段の可愛い店内でハーハーしながら見つめるのも背徳感があっていいにょりが、明るい屋外で見るのもまた格別の果実にょりよ。
しかも景観のいい場所で食べるケーキもまた格別でござる。
I can't even remember the last time I've eaten cake out in the wilderness.
ああ、安心してもいいでござる。自分たちの出したゴミはきちんと持ち帰るでござるよ。
I'll hold you to that.
自然に優しく、自分に厳しく、エンジェルモートに魂を捧げたもののノブレス・オーブリッジなんだな。
Kamada-kun and company spoke proudly. Maybe I should say, the cream on their mouths as they spoke subtly conveyed their joy. In fact, rather than coming here to exploit these young maidens, it seemed like they came here to stuff themselves with cake. But they looked so out of place here. Do these blacklisters not realize how much their presence damages the scenery here?
神社は公共の場所なのです。だからみんなのお庭にしようなのです。
いいのか、リカちゃん。
でもやっぱり遠慮したい人たちもいるのです。みー。
にしてもケイちゃん、心の友って。
Better a soul brother than a soul mate. Having him for a soulmate, I imagine, would lead to a very complicated life.
心の中の存在、つまり妄想の虚像だ。
Now that's harsh.
よってそんな友は俺の世界には存在しない。
Oh, what? The club members don't count, Keiichi? Surely you'd be willing to call them soul sisters.
でもいるじゃん、そこに。
Please, someone completely erase this from reality.
にしてもものすごい数でございますわ。村の半分以上の人間がお集まりになっているようですわね。
内綿流し並みのお祭りなのです。
Well, hey. Actually, no, you shouldn't say that. Someone might die if you frame it in such a manner. Rika-chan likened it to the annual village festival. No, there had to be more people at that. There had to be more people at that. Although, there were enough people here in the shrine grounds that it was hard to deny. I mean, yeah, there has to obviously be more people to it here. She just called it a mini Watanagashi. Mini, which would therefore imply it's smaller than what you typically would see at Watanagashi. Get the gum out of your ears, boy!
ここだけじゃないのです。集会場もひなみ沢の大人たちでいっぱいなのですよ。
そうなの？
As if to support her claim, I could hear boisterous laughter coming from the prefabricated building a short distance away. And it probably wasn't just my imagination, but I detected the scent of alcohol and appetizers. For now, it seemed like the adult and child areas, and the blacklisted area, were well segregated. But it was only a matter of time until that barrier came down.
おいミオン、これはいくらなんでも集めすぎじゃないか？
ケイちゃん甘いよ。クラス委員長が変わるなんて私が学校通うようになってから一度もなかったんだからね。だからこれくらいの規模のお祝いは当然。
本当に？
と言いたいんだけど、確かにこりゃ変だね。
Naturally, Mion couldn't brush it off with just a laugh. She looked like she was at her wits' end and lost in thought.
おかしいな。君吉のおじいちゃんにはバーベキューを手伝ってくれる大人を集めてってお願いしたんだけどな。
君吉も来ているのです。ほら。
ミオンちゃん、ようやくお出ましかい。
When was the last time I've seen you, I wonder? Just then, a dignified old man came out of the assembly hall and walked over to Mion with a smile on his face. His face was bright red and his breath smelled of alcohol. Clearly, they've been drinking here for a while now.
おじいちゃん？
悪いね、勝手に酒に始めちゃってるよ。町会の連中、早く飲ませろってせき立てるもんだから。
You broke your word! To the gallows with you! I had my doubts. Was this man really the famous warrior mayor of Hinamizawa, Kimiyoshi-san? Seriously?
おお、この子だね、ミオンちゃんの一応の彼ってのは。
あ、どうも。一応？
いやいや、さすがにミオンちゃんが見込んだだけあって、なかなかの面構えだ。こりゃミオンちゃんのお父さんを超える男になりそうだな。よろしく頼むよ、米原圭一君。
あ、あいたたたたた。
The mayor squeezed my hand with all his might as I said that. It felt like my hand was being crushed under his grip. Anyway, heart set on? Didn't this man just say that just now?
一応ってどういう？
いや、照れなくてもいいよ、米原君。ミオンちゃんの思い人ってことは、もう村中の人間が認めていることなんだからさ。
はあ？ちょっと待って、おじいちゃん。ケイちゃんはそうなんじゃないって。
分かってる。皆まで言わなくても、おじいちゃんはちゃんとミオンちゃんのことは分かってるから。
Oh, this is hella awkward.
だから違うって。
Mion's face turned bright red as she tried to deny it, but the mayor just kept repeating, "I understand." And looking at his face made me feel extremely anxious. It seemed like this guy misunderstood something. But what did everyone else think?
それよりも、この騒ぎどういうことなの？
どういうこととは？
確かにケイちゃんのお祝いだから大人の人に手伝ってもらいたいって言ったけどさ、こんなに人集めて村上げて大騒ぎしてって言った覚えはないんだけど。
Mion had been struggling to hide her embarrassment since she used the phrase heart set on. He used the phrase, excuse me. And now her face was looking a little red with anger. But the mayor had a gentle smile on his face as he answered.
当たり前じゃないか。今日はめでたい日なんだから。ミオンちゃんのね。
何言ってるの？めでたいのは私じゃなくてケイちゃんで。
同じだよ。
No, it's not. The guest of honor is different in this case.
今日はミオンちゃんが将来の伴侶を見つけたお祝いなんだから。
All right. Who lied? To who? Huh? Then a huge cry burst out. The flock of birds perched on the roof of the shrine all flew off at once. Those white birds looked so beautiful in the blue sky. Not! You hear that? They just called you ugly!
伴侶って何なんですの？
それはですね。
違うのかい？ミオンちゃん、プロポーズされたんだろ？
This time, even Sadako, who had missed the previous outburst, joined us in screaming. Mion's head swung left and right as Rika grabbed her by the collar and scolded her. But Reina didn't forgive Mion and continued shaking her back and forth, up and down with incredible strength. She's trying to say something. Stop shaking her like a freaking bobblehead, man. Even a veteran Air Force pilot passed out with their nose bleeding after suffering that level of shock to their inner ears. The whites of Mion's eyes were beginning to show. But Reina's sonic boom showed zero regard for that, and was even gaining momentum. This is no time to stay silent!
落ち着け、レナ。それだと話したくても話ができない。息もできない。
レナ、やめるのです。ミーが幽体離脱しかけて昇天直前なのです。
Well, if Reina doesn't end up killing her, all the embarrassment she's probably feeling by now most certainly will. Reina came back to her senses and released her grip, and the momentum carried me onto the ground. Then, a delightful scream rang out as her head hit the ground, with her legs pointed skyward.
無様ですわね。たたりなのです。成仏するのです。ナムー。
Divine punishment for what exactly?
勝手に殺すな
Mion Sonozaki, resurrected. It's the second coming! Mion chewed down the leaves that had entered her mouth when she fell and took a deep breath. Disgusting. Then she pulled her body up from the ground and stood up again. Is that grass even edible? Probably not.
ごめん、みーちゃん。こういう時どんな顔していいかわかんなくて。
Don't worry. Your face knows what kind of face to make.
とりあえず笑うのだけはやめてくんない？
それにしても知らなかったですわ。そんな超巨大プロジェクトが水面下で進行していたなんて。
ケイイチもミーも水臭いのです。僕たちにだけは打ち明けて欲しかったのです。
You know what? Sure. The truth is, not only have we confessed, but we're planning to speedrun. We're planning to speedrun into the parental stage. Keiichi is going to take her tonight, and within 4 months instead of 8, they're going to be mothers and fathers, respectively. Somehow.
俺だって知るか。初耳だ。なあ、ミオン。
私だって。私そんなこと一言だって言ってないよ。
Mion sternly shook her head, with her face bright red. But the mayor simply tilted his head with a dubious expression. Looking at that, it was hard to simply brush it aside as some drunken joke.
そもそもミオンさん、村長さんにこのパーティーのことどのようにお伝えになったんですの？
いや、私は別に。
いいから思い出せ。そして一字一句再現してみせろ。
おじいちゃん、今度の日曜にみんなでバーベキューパーティーを開きたいんだけど、協力してくれないかな？
パーティー？そりゃ一向に構わないけど、何のお祝いなんだい？
やっと見つけたんだ。私のすべてを任せられる男の子をね。
Oh. think I see where the misunderstanding is coming into play here. You should have been a bit more specific, Mion. Everyone was paralyzed in shock. I couldn't be certain, but I was probably making the same face.
なんかおかしかった？私言い方間違ってた？
まあ確かに意図は間違ってはおりませんが、
聞き取りようによっては力いっぱい勘違いしてしまえる内容なのですよ。
Translation: Keiichi is not going to be a father. The tragedy.
本当に空気読めないんだね、みーちゃん。
Indeed, speaking carelessly can result in misunderstandings. Maybe we should gather statistics on how many people interpreted that as class rep versus fiancé. An overwhelming majority probably took it one way, including me, unfortunately.
それでね、せっかくの園崎家当主の婚約とあっちゃ、村を挙げてお祝いしなきゃ体裁がつかないって町会のおとなしゅうが言い合ってね。
You know, now that I think about it, if that's indeed what the impression everybody had here, I'm surprised that the current head of the current head of the Sonozaki clan isn't here. Unless she's over out in the back, over in the crowd somewhere, and we just haven't seen her yet.
もちろん御三家としても。
ちょっと待って。この話がばっちゃんの耳に入ったら。
もう知ってるよ、お嬢さんは。
Yep. Okay. Now you're in real trouble now.
今度二人で遊びに来いって本当で迎えてやるって意気込んでたよ。
Uh-oh. Keiichi, Granny is going to pop you with her sword. Take that however you will.
そういう割にものすごくご機嫌だったけどね。
Mion's jaw dropped so far, it seemed like her chin had fallen off. I mean, they authorized all this without consulting the people in question? And what's this about a sword? Am I going to get torn to pieces next time I come over to hang out?
なんせ米原君は今や村一番の有名人だからね。聞いたよ、今度の祭りでもいろいろやってくれるんだって。楽しみにしてるよ。
それよりも話が飛躍しすぎでは。
そりゃまあごく一部の人は早すぎるんじゃないかとは言ってたけどね。今時の若い子のトレンドだと普通かもしれないって意見が出たら丸く収まったよ。
Wait, hold on. No matter how much the times may change, morals don't change that suddenly. Well, unless you're being subverted in a very special and quick fashion by a very specific ideology. And I will not say any more on that matter, lest I piss off the YouTubers up high. And only a handful were opposed? What do you mean just a handful? I'm seriously having doubts about the common sense of these adults.
それにこういうめでたいことは村の全員で雰囲気を盛り上げることも必要だしね。
Well, you heard the man, Keiichi. Everyone in the village wants you to be a father.
しっかりやりたまえ、米原君。
Well, you heard the man, Keiichi. You better make the whole village proud by fathering the absolute hell out of Mion.
ひなみ沢の町会は君たちのことを応援するぞ。
Well, you heard the man, Keiichi. The whole town council will support you. They'll probably throw in lube too if needed. Alright, I'll shut up now. All I could do was laugh. Why did it come to this? Our village?
ミオン、お前からもなんか言って。な
Mion?
ツンツン。
Uh-oh.
立ったまま KO されているのです。みーちゃん。
Come on, Mion! You can't faint now! You're the one who caused this misunderstanding!
あ、おじいちゃん。
Well, if it looks like a Mion, talks like a Mion, and sounds like a Mion, then clearly the person that I'm looking at right now must be Mion. But I know better. Hi, Shion.
向こうで牧野さんが呼んで。あれ？
Meanwhile, the person who I least wanted to run into during a chaos situation like this had arrived. Shion. Sure enough, Shion was able to get a good look at our faces from a blind spot behind the mare, and donned an evil smile. Then...
こんにちは、お兄さん。ご機嫌いかがですか？
シオン、てめえ。
あれ？違いますか？お姉のご亭主様なら私には義理の兄でしょうに。
Yeah, I won't lie. Having you for a sister-in-law certainly would make for a very complicated life, to put it lightly. Upon hearing Shion's name, Mion finally came to her senses. Shion had an amused look on her face while cackling to herself, then began to see the mare off with an expression on the verge of tears.
シオン、あんたからもおじいちゃんたちに言って。これ誤解、間違い、みんなの勘違いだって。え、そうなんですか？そうに決まってるでしょ。あんた分かってるくせに。おかしいな。この前パーティーの企画してた時はケイちゃんのことベタ褒めでラブラブ光線乱れ打ちって感じだったのに。
ラブラブ？
それ言ったら絶好だってあれほど言ったでしょうが。あんた本気で殴るよ。おやー、それ人に物を頼む態度ですか？ちょっとショックですね。お願いします、シオン様。
Ooh, she's throwing a sama at the end of it here. She must be desperate to get this wrapped up.
これまでの無礼は平に謝りますから。どうかあなたの口からみんなに誤解だって説明を。いいじゃないですか、楽しければ。それはあんたたちだけでしょうが。
Well, there's also me. I'm also kind of enjoying this too. She could no longer maintain her usual composure. Mion was in a panic, with her face as red as an octopus, while groveling at Shion. Octopuses could be different colors other than red. What's with that pose? But Shion still had a calm look on her face and deliberately tilted her head to the side in a strained gesture.
まあ、言ってみますけどね。多分手遅れですよ、もう。は？向こうの集会場、今どんな話題で盛り上がってると思います？生まれてくる跡継ぎが男か女かで誰が名付け親になるかって話ですよ。
跡継ぎ？
Wait! They can't subspace warp so far into the future based on a single misunderstanding! We're still kids! That doesn't mean anything.
みーちゃんの赤ちゃん。でもなんだかよくわかんないけど変な気分。だけどやっぱり可愛いから
Well, Daddy Boy Keiichi, are you fine with the idea of Reina taking your precious baby home with her? Will you stand idly by and allow that to happen? Because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen her collections. How it's all piled up all over the place. You sure you want your baby to be buried underneath a pile of various knickknacks and trash and rubble?
レナさん首絞まってます。ロープブレイク試合ストップなのでございますわ。
Reina must have been envisioning some outrageous delusion, and she was tightly squeezing Sadako beside her with both arms, serving as a substitute baby. I noticed Sadako's face gradually changing from red to blue, but she's probably fine. It's Sadako. Yeah, she's fine. Sadako is durable. She could probably take a chair to the noggin and be okay.
まあそんなに心配しなくても。みんな冗談半分ですし。
半分本気なんじゃないか。
That's no consolation.
あとですね。母さんと父さんももうすぐ来るみたいですよ。花婿さんを見に。
花婿って、俺にか？
直々に見聞してやるって。あ、気をつけてくださいね、ケイちゃん。
Now, be very, very, very careful how you present yourself to them, Keiichi. After all, we are basically talking about Yakuza, a Yakuza clan here, more or less. Especially in the case of her father.
うちのお父さん、園崎組の親分さんだから。頑張ってくださいよ。
応援してるのか脅迫してるのか、どっちだお前は。
And what's this about a personal examination? Like I'm some kind of criminal or a suspect.
大丈夫ですよ、ケイちゃん。私が二人にはちゃんと説明しておきましたから。
Oh boy.
ちゃんとね。
Oh boy. What did you explain? Judging by Shion's face, there was no need to ask. And after all that, Mion's face finally stopped looking like it was burned out from the end of the world.
あんた。なんてこと。当然の報いです。私をカレー事件で命の危機に追い込んだ天罰ってことで。
You still haven't forgotten about that?
そりゃそうですよ。
Dang. I guess revenge is a bit. Would revenge in this dish be hot? Be a dish served hot in this case, since this whole thing started over curry, or would it still be cold? Questions for later.
竹を割ったような性格と呼ばれるよりも、むしろ餅をついたような女と呼ばれたい。それが私、園崎シオン。
自分で言ってると世話ないのです。
だいたいこんな面白いネタ沈めてもしょうがないでしょ。火を消すくらいならガソリンぶっかけて火の海にした方がそりゃもう爽快ってやつですか。
Spoken like a true pyromaniac. A demon. She's a demon. Is there no one out there who can stop this runaway express train? Do you forget where you are, Keiichi? This is Hinamizawa, formerly known as Onigafuchi, the village of demons.
ケイちゃん。
This train ain't stopping for anything.
逃げよ
う。は?
You know what? That's actually a very romantic idea, Mion. Let's go run off together. You and I, just the two of us, away from the village of demons.
はあじゃないでしょ。状況わかってる？このままだと私たち今日は一日中酒の魚にされて、明日からは公認のカップル誕生だよ。
Officially? Well, thinking about it, having Mion for a partner might not be so bad. Wait, what am I thinking? You're thinking with your head, son. And I don't mean the one above your shoulders.
ケイちゃんってば。
そうだな。悪いレナ。今日のパーティーは延期ってことで。
Sadako was finally released from Reina's clutches and fell to the ground with her arms and legs spread out. Breathe, Sadako! Breathe! Rika-chan began poking her with a twig to confirm her well-being. But right now, my priority was ensuring my personal safety. Sorry, Sadako.
行くぜ、ミオ。
行こう。
Mion started running and turned to look back at me, but she inadvertently ran into a woman standing in front of her. Mion was overwhelmed by her momentum and her butt landed on the ground, but the woman dressed in a kimono was somehow able to lightly stagger and maintain her footing.
すみません。
It's mommy and daddy dearest, isn't it?
Oh,
いえいえ。
bye.
Yeah.
愛も変わらず落ち着きのない子だね。
When I heard that distinct accent, I couldn't help but look up at her. She had almond eyes and a shapely face, and a smile that reminded me of someone else. No way.
ミオン。
When she looked up at the woman, Mion's face looked like an Edvard Munch painting. Or maybe like those Hinoa statues? I timidly turned back towards Shion and the others behind us. Shion was shaking her head like she was telling me to give up, and Riki-chan was holding her hands in prayer.
あんたが前原くんかい？私はミオンの母親やってる園崎茜さ。これからはお母さんって呼んでいいからね。
Well, Keiichi, starting to look to me like you're going to be a father after all, at this rate. Lucky you. And so, at that moment, I realized that a day that could have been one of the best of my life had no doubt already become the worst. Hey now! It's a bit premature to be calling it that, don't you think? I could make a premature kind of sex joke here, but I'm not going to. Tips unlocked. Shion and Akane. What do we have here?
Oh yeah? 何してるんだい？
母さん、熱燗が足りなくなったみたいだから準備をしていました。
そんなこと言って隠れてちびちびやってたんじゃないのかい？今日。
そうなんですか？それじゃあ私もお一つ。
そいつはもう少しだけ待ちな。あと数年もしたらもっといいやつを蔵から出してきてやるからさ。
はい、楽しみにしてますよ。
もうあんただけでも帰っていいんだよ。
何ですか、母さん。また私だけ仲間外れですか？
そうじゃないさ。ただあんたもこういう席だと言いづらいんじゃないかなって。
どうして？
何年あんたの母親やってきたと思ってるんだよ。それくらいはわかるさ。それに私だってあんたたちのことを思い出さなかったわけじゃないんだからね。
仕方ないですよ。あの時とお姉のこれは状況が全然違うんですから。
そうかい。分かってんのならそれでいいさね。けどこれだけは覚えておくんだよ。 あの時はあんたが憎くてああなったわけじゃない。相手が悪すぎただけなんだよ。
Poor Satoshi.
彼は悪い人だったんですか？
いいや、いい子だったと思うよ。妹を守って懸命に生きてきた姿は私から見ても好青年だったと思う。ただね、ここはひなみ沢で、あんたは園崎の人間だ。自分の意志だけではどうにもならないものが厳然と存在する。
その母さんは母さんですか？それともばあさんですか？
両方だよ。本当は当主だってあんたをミオンと同じくらい大切に思っている。今のあんたが辛いのは当然だけど、村のために憎まれ役を演じ続けなきゃならない辛さも少しは分かってやってくれないかい？
難しい要求です。正直今答えろって言われたらノーしかないです。
そうかい。
Just then, the kettle on the stove began to steam. When Shion saw that, she flipped the switch on to turn out the flame.
おや、出来上がったようだね。それじゃあこのとっくりは私が持って行ってやるよ。
すみません、よろしくお願いします。
なんだい？
それ母さんの分は2本までですよ。
I can't help but wonder if Shion had to hold back a strong surge of anger during that little exchange, considering it was Satoshi that was getting criticized there, more or less. Probably not as much as she would in the other routes, to be sure, but still. The surrounding area was already pitch black. I give up too. I don't care anymore. Life's just not worth living. I'm out of seltzer water. I can't go on. I finally succeeded in escaping from that banquet, or perhaps I should say the chaos of that meeting hall, and I took a seat on the stone steps in front of the shrine. Then, the chilling touch of those steps brought me back to my senses, and I let out a sigh of relief. Reina, Sadako, and the other kids were making a commotion earlier, but they had already gone home. Only me, Mion, and the certified guardian, Shion, were stuck here, partying with the drunken adults. Mion was embarrassed at first, but whether she had gained the ability to open up or had simply resigned to her fate, she ultimately began chatting with the adults in high spirits. I didn't want to pour oil on the fire. That's Shion's job. If I approached her and asked her to stop, it probably would have just made things worse. But, considering how upset and embarrassed Mion was earlier, I thought I should start to open up too. This is the one occasion where anyone can make a fool of themselves, just for today, and go right back to normal tomorrow. And then after that, let's not think about that for now.
しかし、ミオンのお母さんがあんな人だったとはな。
I absentmindedly blurted that out, but it was a total case of like mother, like daughter. Or maybe the other way around. Anyway, in short, she was outstanding. I always thought that Mion's plucky personality and older sister demeanor came from her father, but it seems like she inherited it from the so-called Sonozaki matriarch, her grandmother Oryu. I realize that now. No doubt about it, she inherited that through her mother. What's more, when her father confirmed that for me, he turned to me with an indescribable expression and offered me encouragement by saying, "You two, good luck." Well, hey, at least daddy-in-law likes you. Perhaps he couldn't help but tremble imagining my future.
でもいい人たちだったな。
Yeah, they're good people, unless you forget to pay your protection money. Mion's mother was strong-willed and leapt into conversations, and her father's way of speaking and laughing didn't feel like what I expect from a gangster. Just call him Yakuza, man, this is Japan. But I could easily tell just how close the two of them were. And I realized that Mion had grown into the wonderful person she was because of the two of them. I heard all kinds of stories. Amusing old stories, dubious ghost stories, and legends. And stories about the dark, sad past of Hinamizawa.
ダム工事ですか？
そう。このひなみ沢はね、お上のお偉方が建てた国土計画の一環ってやつで、ダム湖の底に沈むことになっていたんだよ。
あ、でも中止になったんですよね。
中止になってなかったら、ここで宴会なんてやってないさね。中止にさせたんだよ。村人みんなで団結してね。だから、今日のこの時間は、私たちが戦って勝ち取った報酬なんだよ。
Mion's mother laughed while raising her glass, then took a drink. She'd been drinking quite a bit, but she didn't look drunk at all. What an amazing person. She can clearly hold her drink. The dam opposition effort was ongoing just 5 years ago. According to her, the villagers united to protest at government offices and construction sites, and the story was featured in newspapers and magazines. It seemed like a huge ordeal. Mion's mother described these past events in a cheerful tone. They may have been partly due to pride, but more than that, it was likely done to avoid alarming the listener. But thanks to that, it sounded kind of fun.
はじめこそ議会を通じて嘆願したり、大臣に直接訴えたり、比較的に平穏なものだったよ。でも、徐々に国は権力を行使して高圧的な態度で挑んできた。機動隊とかなんとか組織だった強制執行ってやつでね。だから戦った。私たちも、あの子も、ね。
ミオンも？
ああ。あの子は行動力もあるけど、いろいろと悪知恵が効いてね、警官隊とかの武力集団に立ち向かったりして、公務執行妨害でよく留置場に放り込まれていたよ。
はい、余計なことは言わんでいい。
Mion's father, who was sitting right beside her, spoke up to cut her off.
そりゃそうだけど、ミオンの夫になろうって以上、話しとくのが筋ってもんだろ。
それはミオンが自分で話すことだ。親が言うことじゃない。
はいはい。私はそういう隠し事は嫌いだけどね。やれやれ。
I reached for the bottle of sake in front of me to distract myself. Then, when I looked back, I saw Mion's mother smiling and staring straight back at me.
なんでこんな話をしたか。そう思ってるかい？
いや。はい。
That was a natural question. I handed her the sake bottle and she poured herself another glass. And then, she thought deeply while choosing her words.
ひなみ沢はね、昔から根も葉もない噂を立てられたりして、この村の出身者はいろいろと差別されてきた。だから結束力が固い といえば聞こえがいいけど、反面ものすごく排他的でね。外から来た人には無意識のうちで色眼鏡をかけちまう。だから結構みんな気にしてたんだよ。前原くんたちのように新しい人たちがうまくやっていけるか。知らないうちに暮らしづらい空気を作ってはいないかってね。
そんなことないです。毎日が楽しくて、ひなみ沢に引っ越してよかったと本気で思ってます。
The words came out naturally, without any hesitation, because I truly did feel that way.
そう言ってくれると嬉しいよ。あの子は、ミオンはレナちゃんやあんた、それに北条のさとこちゃんのこともいつも気にかけていた。だからこの村の暗い過去、そして噂話を秘密にしていたんだと思う。みんなに明るく過ごしてもらいたい、その一心でさ。
Come to think of it, Reina said the same thing. When she moved here last year, she was able to adjust to the village atmosphere without any difficulty thanks to Mion's support. She may seem rough at first glance, but she cares more than anybody else. Mion is a really kind-hearted girl.
それでも狭い村のことだからいつかはわかる話だろう。だけど隠していたのはそういう理由だっていうことだからね。どんなことがあってもあの子の優しさだけはあんたたちだけでも信じてやってはくれないかい。
I felt the strong, warm affection behind those words.
あの子はこれまでずっとこのひなみ沢の御三家園崎の次期当主として生きてきた。きっとこれからもそうなんだろう。だからあの子は自分の思いとか感情ってやつを無意識に押し込めるところがあるのさ。かわいそうなことをした。そのせいで冷たいとか人の心を読み切れていないとか誤解されてひどいことも言われたりしてね。
そんな。
Mion's heart is cold. That's wrong. That's the one thing she said that's wrong. What's cold about doing your best to selflessly think about the people around you? Like when she tested me for the role of class representative. She'll sacrifice anything for the sake of others, even if it means becoming the bad guy. Such a broad, kind heart may sometimes seem cold, but I didn't think myself too dull to recognize it. And I wanted to believe there were people out there who could feel it too.
正直疑いそうになったことはあります。けどやっぱりミオンは最高の仲間です。少なくとも俺は、そして俺たちはそう思っています。
ありがとうよ。けれども皆の代表になるってのはそういうことなんだよ。自分の感情を殺しても皆の生活と安定を求めなくてはいけない。そしてそれは村のみんなが知ってる。知っていて結局何もできなかった。私も含めてね。だからこそあの子があんたの名前を出して委員長を任せるなんて言った時には正直驚いたんだよ。たかが学校の役職なんて言うかもしれない。それでも上に立つことの辛さはあの子が一番よく知っているはずだからね。おいそれと誰かに背負わせるくらいなら自分が黙って持ち続けようとするんだよ。今までのあの子なら。
俺は
Up until now, I wasn't thinking too deeply about what Mom said. I thought her excuse that she was studying for exams was just an attempt to hide her embarrassment, but the adults around her were also watching that. Even so, the mysteries and feelings didn't change anything. It was no lie that she wanted me to work hard for everyone's sake, as the person in charge. I felt a tremendous desire to reciprocate Mion's strong faith in me.
あ、でもそれならなおさらなんで？
Why tell me about Mion's past and the real Mion? I can't be certain, but is there a chance hearing it would make me think less of her? Is that really a good thing to do? Mion's mother responded with a laugh, and then raised her glass as she answered my question.
言っただろ？ミオンは私たちの大事な宝だ。だからあんたには私たち以上にミオンの力になってくれる友達でいてやってほしいんだよ。
And then, Mion's mother gazed straight at me with sharp eyes. For a moment, I looked back with my fists clenched to demonstrate the strength of my thoughts.
結婚なんて本当はどうでもいい。実現したらなおいいけどね。でもあの子に必要なのはあの子が等身大になって話ができる友達だ。やばい時には助けられて盛大に迷惑をかけ合っても構わない仲間なんだ。そしてあんたたちならそれが務まると私は勝手に思ってるのさ。随分と重い荷物を背負わせちまってるけどさ、あの子の期待とかいろんな思い、それだけは分かってやっておくれ。
はい。
The answer came right out of my mouth. I worried it looked careless of me to speak so quickly, but Mion's mother seemed to be able to read the movements in my heart, and nod to me with a clear smile on her face.
ミオンは大切な友達ですから任せてください、お母さん。
Suddenly I felt my head being grabbed. Mion's mother was waving her index finger at me, saying tisk tisk tisk.
そいつは本当に結婚する時までお預けだよ。私はその日を楽しみに待ってるからね。ミオンで役不足だったらいつでも乗り換えていいんだよ。若いツバメは大歓迎さ。
That sounds like a threat. Ah! I couldn't help but spit out the oolong tea I was drinking and burst into a coughing fit. I'm simply no match for someone like her. Is Mion going to turn out like this? I couldn't help but shudder as an image of Mion walking all over me came to mind. That'll only happen if you let her. Mion came in carrying food from the kitchen, but I couldn't even look at her in the eyes. A sigh leaked out, but it wasn't out of a desire to escape the overwhelming pressure. Actually, I was feeling restless, thinking about the things I could do going forward. Marriage or whatever? They're still just a story to us, and the adults making such a fuss know that perfectly well. Still, everyone grows up someday. There's only so long you can be an irresponsible child. Well, some people never grow up, and they remain irresponsible until the day they die, much to the detriment of everyone else around them. That goes for Mion, Reina, Sadako, Rika-chan, and Shion. And of course, me too. The time I can spend thinking of only myself will fade in the future. My thoughts, words, and actions can affect the lives and very existence of others. I can help but be aware of my involvement. And supporting other people, working together, facing hardships without turning and running. That's what it means to become an adult, and to let someone other than yourself take over something you created. It felt like I was finally beginning to understand why so many people came to today's gathering. Listening carefully, I could hear the cry of the crickets. They had a different tone from the afternoon cicadas and the evening Higurashi that surrounded this quiet area. It's strange. In the past, I felt scared, lonely, and small when alone in the dark. It was miserable and wretched. But now it's very peaceful. It wasn't that long ago that I was living in Tokyo, but it already felt like a bad dream. I spread my arms and legs out to gaze up at the glittering, star-filled sky. It's easy to see the binary star system in the Big Dipper. Back then, I was in Tokyo. I could only see the other star of the telescope. More things have become visible thanks to the change in environment. It may seem like a tired expression, but before I came to Hinamizawa, I never considered any adults or friends my age an irreplaceable part of my life. I'm glad I came here. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And in order to avoid forgetting the lessons and consequences of my past mistakes, I want to be the kind of person who considers my friends precious. I could faintly hear the... Excuse me. I could faintly hear the uproar inside the assembly hall, along with the cry of crickets. In addition to that, I felt like I could see a flickering shadow off in the inner part of the shrine grounds just a short distance away. I got up and looked more carefully. There was a dark pine forest on the other side, with no light at all. Suddenly, a strong cool breeze blew by, stroking my cheeks, and for a moment, I started to think whatever I saw was just grass or something.
Keiichi.
Mixed together with the wind, I heard a faint sound resembling a human voice.
Eh?
Is that a hallucination? No. That voice definitely called out my name.
Keiichi.
There it is again, and this time it sounds even clearer than before. What should I do? Should I go to it or... No. Let's go. I think that's Rika. Still anxious and hesitant, I stepped into the realm of darkness in the recesses of the shrine grounds. After taking the first step, my legs kept moving on their own. The place I arrived at was a high vantage point I had visited before. And then...
Rika-chan?
Keiichi, なぜここに?
Wait, that wasn't you calling me? The person standing over here overlooking the village was Rika-chan.
いつの間に帰ったのかなって思ってたけど、ここにいたんだ。
Me.
I was so surprised coming over here that I said something more awkward than usual. But what was that voice earlier?
俺を呼んだのって、リカちゃんじゃないのか？
呼んでないのです。でも、とは思いましたのです。
So what? Did I just hear your thoughts or something? Rika-chan turned her gaze downward as she quietly muttered that. Then she turned her back this way and looked up at the moon. In the silence, a breeze blew up from the base of the hill, causing Rika-chan's long dark hair to dance and glitter in the moonlight. I stared at her slender back for a while and felt a hard, cold, icy presence on my shoulders. For a while, I continued staring at her back.
さ、リカちゃん。
運命の導き。まさか。でも。
え？
なんでもないのです。こんばんはなのです。ケイチ。
Then, Rika-chan turned to me for her usual smile and said, Nipa? The cold atmosphere that had been enveloping her whole body disappeared in an instant, as she turned toward me with the kind, gentle gesture that Reina would describe as cute.
まだ帰らなかったのか？
キイチロウに話があると言って残りました。サトコはレナがお持ち帰りなのです。
Poor Sadako. Come to think of it, I feel like when Sadako was playing with the other kids earlier today, she said she wanted to see the new items Reina added to her collection.
リカちゃんは？
キイチローの家に泊まることになっているのです。酔っ払いじいさんは僕でなければ誰も連れ帰ることができないのですよ。
なんか保護者があべこべだな。
少なくとも酒の入ったキイチローだと保護どころか保護にすることの方が多いのですよ。ニパー。
What a terrible drunk.
ケイチ、ここから夜の村を見たことがありますか？
いや、ないけど。やった。
I gently approached the vacant spot next to Rika-chan and looked down at the village from there. The nighttime view had a mysterious quality to it thanks to the modest illumination from electric lights.
綺麗だよな。それに、なんだかのどかな景色で落ち着くよ。
ここから見える明かりの一つ一つに人の命が宿っているのです。
リカちゃん、詩人だな。
こう見えても僕は俳句も作れるのです。喜一郎やお涼にもなかなかの腕前だと褒めてもらったことがあるのですよ。
へえ、そうなんだ。
そうなのです。今度歌会に一緒に行って勝負なのですよ。
That sounds like it would put me at a tremendous disadvantage. You and me both. Mion and Shion both seem pretty practiced in that regard, and Reina would be a formidable opponent. Sadako would likely receive support from Rika-chan, elevating her to an almost equal level. In which case, the only people I'd be able to compete with are the junior students? Supposed to be the class rep. How can I have such low aspirations? Isn't it a leader's duty to fight for the top even when I'm outmatched? Yep!
そうなのですよ。リーダーは常に尊敬とそれに見合う勝利を求められるのです。
Get out of my head! It's cramped in there already as it is.
それはきついな。で、リカちゃん、なんで俺の考えてること分かった？
そろそろ考えていることをそのまま口にする癖を改めた方がいいと思うのです。
Upon receiving that piercing attack, I immediately choked up. But as soon as I looked up at Rika-chan's face, I began to smile naturally.
どうしたのですか？
いや、そういえば言ってなかったよな。ありがとうって。
Rika-chan stared blankly for a moment, but quickly recognized what I was getting at and flashed me a bright smile.
どういたしましてなのです。ニパー。
That thank you was, of course, for her help in the game that landed me the position of class rep. If Rika-chan hadn't kicked the can back then, my team would have been defeated.
考えてみれば、今日の宴会もほとんどリカちゃんのおかげなんだよな。
You were the Cupid! I hope you're proud of yourself.
別に僕は大したことをしていないのです。みんなをここまで動かしたケイチがずっとすごいのです。
そんなことないって。けど、みんながいてくれたから今日があった。それは確かだと思うし、絶対これからも忘れてはいけないことなんだろうな。
とてもいい言葉なのですよ。
Rika-chan said that with a smile and nodded.
だけど、ちょっと安心したな。だってさ、おかげでリカちゃんが元気になってくれたみたいだから。
僕は。
The smile vanished from Rika-chan's face, replaced with a startled expression. And then...
もう大丈夫なのですよ。風邪も治って元気いっぱいなのです。
リカちゃん？
A faint smile floated across her innocent face.
心配かけてごめんなさいなのです。でも、明日からはいつも通りの僕なのですよ。ニパー。どうしました？ケイチ？
あ、いや。
Rika-chan peered at me while lightly tilting her head in a cutesy, friendly manner. Staring straight at me with those dark pupils, I looked away for a moment in embarrassment. But something stirring in the back of that gaze felt out of place. I've realized it for a while now, but something is bothering Rika-chan. She's never said anything, but it must be something deep and heavy enough to make her distance herself from us. I understood that much. Look at you, being perceptive. And we've been waiting for the day to come when she'd be willing to tell us. But, looking at her expression now, I don't think her problem has gone away. Rika-chan is still keeping quiet. Does that mean it's something we can't help her with?
違うわ、ケイチ。
え？
この子を導いてあげて、あなただけが頼りなの。
Wait, Hanyuu? What? Just now. I'm sure I heard a voice.
リカちゃん？今、何か言った？
Rika-chan stared vacantly and shook her head. I quickly turned and looked around, but of course there were no signs of anyone else nearby. Just the sound of the trees swaying in the breeze. Then, what on earth was that voice? I think that was actually Hanyuu I heard earlier. Well, how about that? I guess she's still not fully gone from this world. Still.
この子を導いてあげて。
Those words I heard just now pierced a small hole through my chest.
ケイチ。
And so, I turned toward Rika-chan, who was still dubiously staring at me, and spoke resolutely.
あのさ、リカちゃん。無理しなくてもいいんだぞ。
Rika-chan stared at me with a puzzled expression. I immediately started to regret speaking so carelessly, but the pain tightened in my chest and coaxed me to put my thoughts into words.
今のリカちゃん。っていうか、ずっとだけど、泣いているように見える。なんだか、すごく辛い気持ちを抱えて、押し隠してるような。って、うまく言えないけど。だから、そんなに一人で悩まないでさ。俺でよかったら、力になるぜ。無理には聞かないけど、よかったら話してくれないか。
ケイチ。
The smile vanished from Rika-chan's face as soon as she heard that, and she turned her gaze downward. Then,
それは、委員長としての仕事ですか？
え？
Rika-chan's usual and somewhat thorny reaction caught me by surprise. She carefully examined my face, searching for my true intentions.
どうなのですか？
リカちゃん。
I was a little confused by the atmosphere Rika-chan was projecting. Her expression hardened, like it was something she didn't want touched. Even so, I just wanted to convey to her how I really felt.
委員長。それもあるかもしれない。けど、それ以上にリカちゃんは俺たちの大事な仲間だ。だから、もしも何か悩みがあるなら、打ち明けてもらいたいと思うし、手伝えることがあるなら手を貸したい。みんなだってそう思ってる。
みんな、ですか。ケイチは、みんなにそれをちゃんと確かめたのですか？
それは、けど、いちいち聞かなくても、俺たちは。
そうやって信頼するのは、でも、もしその信頼が裏切られたら、その後はどうするのですか？ケイチ。
何かあったのかリカちゃん。
聞いているのは僕です、ケイイチ。答えてください。
Why did Rika-chan have such a sharp, antagonistic tone today? And the strong light in her eyes made it clear she wouldn't tolerate careless answers. So, I organized my thoughts and earnestly put them together.
そうだな。正直言ってわからない。でもそうやって裏切られるかもと思っている間は結局その信頼は本物じゃない。だからもし相手を信頼すると決めたら裏切られることなんて考えない。少なくとも俺はそうだ。
僕はそんなにお人よしさんにはなれないのです。信じてそれが叶わなかったことをたくさん知りすぎてしまいました。
Rika-chan looked down as she said that. Seeing that face made me feel more and more worried about her.
本当にどうしたんだリカちゃん。もしよかったら話してくれないか。最近のリカちゃんなんか見ていられないんだ。
僕は別に。
Now come on. Be honest.
なあリカちゃん、話せば少しでも気分が楽になるかもしれない。俺はリカちゃんのおかげでみんなの信頼を得ることができた。だから今度は俺の番だ。君の力になりたいんだ。
本当に。
Rika-chan raised her head and looked up at me. I firmly nodded and looked back at her, waiting for her answer. Rika-chan gently turned her back and took a step toward the cliff. Then, she looked up at the moon, shining in the vast night sky.
リカちゃん、あまりその先行くと危ない。
それならケイイチ、あなたに聞きたいことがあります。
え？
もし。
Her voice sounded like the ringing of bells. Rika-chan turned away from me and stood with her hands behind her back, then spoke.
もし定められた運命が、ケイイチはどうしますか？
定められた運命？
もしその運命がケイイチの大切なものを傷つけ、そして奪っていくとしたら、ケイイチならどうしますか？
それは。
What does that mean? Maybe it's a continuation of that poem earlier? This doesn't seem like the atmosphere to be making jokes. But Rika-chan was standing with her back to me, looking like she was seriously waiting for my answer.
ケイイチ、どうしますか？
決まってるじゃないか。
Fight it! So I.
もちろん戦うさ。
I gave a strong answer filled with my true feelings.
リカちゃんの言う大切なものの意味はよくわからないけど、ミオン、レナ、サトコ、シオン、もちろんリカちゃんも、俺にとって仲間はかけがえのない大切な存在だ。だからもしそれを脅かす奴がいたら俺は戦う。
それが運命だとしても、もう決まっていることだとしても。
当たり前だ。それに運命とか未来とかが最初から決まってるなんて、俺はそんなの俺がいくらでも変えてやる。自分とみんなの幸せのためならどんな相手でも俺は絶対に負けたりしない。
そう、本当に面白い人なのです、あなたは。
Beyond her slender back, I could hear the sound of a sigh. And once I realized she had faintly whispered something, Rika-chan turned toward me with the moon at her back, and a more serious expression than I'd ever seen before.
もうすぐ綿流しのお祭りが始まります。そして
その晩、お社様のたたりとして、富武が殺されます。
I immediately gasped at her words. Tomitake. Tomitake-san is that photographer who travels to Hinamizawa around this time every year. That man is going to be killed on the night of Watanagashi?
そして時を同じくして、看護師の高野が行方不明に。しかしこれは、偽装されたものです。
リカちゃん？
それからしばらくして、今度は、僕が殺される。この古出神社で、生きたまま、腹を裂かれて。
The content of the conversation was so extreme, I couldn't even pinch out a word. And what's more, it wasn't about someone else's fate. Rika-chan was talking about her own fated death. For a moment, I thought it was a joke, but Rika-chan's expression was completely lacking her usual cheerful smile. I deeply reflected on every single word. This is a delusional prediction? Or like she said earlier, this is fate?
なぜ僕が殺されるのか。それに、みんながその後、どんな運命に巻き込まれるのかも、はっきりと、すべてはわかりません。でも、それは事実。そして、もうずっと長い間続いている。
何を言って。
すべて、運命によって定められた出来事。僕は、
Then, Rika-chan flipped her dark hair and took a step toward me. Her shiny, black, crystalline eyes stared straight at me. Without laughter. Without sorrow or anger. Just a completely transparent expression. As she motionlessly looked back at me, studying my reaction.
僕は、この運命を、何百回、何千回と続けてきました。そしてまた、同じ時間を経て、あなたたちとこうして。
リカちゃん？
そんな、厳しい現実を知ってしまった人間にとって、気安い慰めは虚しく、そして力になる、運命と戦う。なんて、口にするのは簡単でしょう。なら、今まで一度もうまくいったことのない現実を幾千度も見てきた僕に、あなたはそれに代わる何かを見せてくれるというのですか？
A girl was standing right before my eyes, giving off the cold atmosphere I felt earlier. And sure enough, that this was no optical illusion. Then, who on earth is this girl right in front of me?
あなたには初めて見せることになると思います。そう。これが本当の僕です。古出リカのもう一つの姿です。僕は自分の死で閉じられたこの時間をもう数えきれないほど繰り返して生きてきたのですよ。信じられないという顔ですね。でも、これは夢ではないのです。僕とあなた、ここにいる二人だけが見ている、たった一つの現実なのです。
Rika-chan sneered as she said that. I wanted to say she was wrong, but I held my tongue. Even if I spoke up to deny her, she would know that my heart wasn't in it. So I just continued staring at Rika-chan in bewilderment.
答えてください、ケイイチ。あなたは僕に一体何を見せてくれるというのですか？
俺は リカちゃん。
Keiichi continued staring at me with his eyes open wide. It's only natural. If a girl who was always smiling and laughing in a cheerful voice suddenly started saying something crazy, anyone would doubt their ears. I finally told him. And what's more, I can't keep my emotions under control at a time like this, so I showed him this form. He wanted me to tell him. He wanted to help me. How long have I been waiting to hear that? Those words can give me the courage and hope to challenge fate. But can he still say that after truly understanding me? Because if not, then the words he conveyed are completely empty. Does he understand how terribly cruel that is? I wanted to believe in my friends. I wanted to believe in them, rely on them, and accept their help. But can he really say that after knowing the weight and the darkness lingering in my heart? Will he still feel the same way? Unlike when I confessed to the club members in the previous world, this time I had no evidence of the truth. Despite the precarious situation, I was prepared to confess. And if I am betrayed here, I'll be truly alone after this. But even so, this isn't a plan. I'm shaking the dice here. The dice have literally been thrown. I waited for Keiichi's reply. In this world, unlike anything I've experienced before, Keiichi has shown me things beyond my imagination. It was my one hope against the despair I'd been saddled with. And I had been silently watching over the club members, thinking it would be meddlesome to talk to them about it. So, even though it seemed impulsive, I wanted to take this chance. If he believes what I say here, if he accepts the me that I've kept hidden until now, I think I can believe in a small miracle.
答えてください。ケイチ。
I took a breath while waiting for Keiichi's response. If Keiichi apologizes and makes fun of me, I'll smile and give up. I'll say, it was a joke, Nipa. And after that, I'll only be able to think that this is my destiny. Like the boy who cried wolf, screaming for help in the worst possible situation before eventually losing his life.
リカちゃん。
Before long, Keiichi opened his mouth.
ごめん。
なんて冗談なので。
なんて言うとでも思ったか？
I raised my head and looked up at Keiichi. He was grinning and giving me a thumbs up.
正直、リカちゃんの言ってること半分もわかんない。それに、さっきからずっと言ってるけど、俺は運命なんてものは全然信じちゃいない。
そうですね。僕の言ってることを信じてもらえたのは、何千回の中のほんの数回だけ。無理もないのです。こんな話、信じる方が不思議だと思いますのですよ。だから。
だからどうした？
え？
だからどうしただぜ。俺が信じないのは、誰かに決められた未来ってやつで、リカちゃん本人とか、リカちゃんの言うことに対してじゃない。それに、仲間が苦しんでいるのを見過ごすなんて、俺がそんな奴だとでも思ってたのか？あのさ、リカちゃん。
As I stood there bewildered, Keiichi put a hand on my shoulder and deeply nodded to reassure me. His hand was big and warm, with a very gentle touch.
今言った話が本当か夢かはともかくとして、 そのことで苦しんでるリカちゃんを俺たちが黙って見ていると思っていたのか？言いたくないことなら俺も聞かないけど、今そんなに怒っていったってことは本当は聞いてもらいたかったんじゃないのか？だから話してくれ、リカちゃん。俺も信じられないと思ったら正直にそう言う。だけど何も聞かされなかったら信じられる話かどうかもわかんないままだ。
ケイチ！
Again, his words and his expression give me hope. Even if I may be betrayed, he gives me the courage to set aside my anxiety and move forward. Will Keiichi truly believe me? And is it really the right choice to share everything with him right now? One way to find out. Keiichi maintained a serious expression while waiting for me to open my mouth. Perhaps... No, if it's Keiichi, then I'm sure my power. But even so, I was filled with unease. How will relying on his power be able to change the future? Should I persuade the villagers? Join forces to fight Takano? No, it's unlikely that either of those would succeed. And even if all the club members at my side, it's still the same. Should I confess everything here and now? I vented my timidness and frustration at Keiichi, but maybe I'm not scaring out a snake by poking at the bush. Although, it wasn't that long ago that the doubts and anxiety gave way to joy that was destroyed in an instant.
それに俺だけじゃない。レナたちにも相談すればきっとリカちゃんの力になってくれるさ。そうだ、明日早速このことを話して。
待ってください。
I instinctively grabbed Keiichi by his sleeve and shook it. When he noticed that, he tilted his head to his side and looked puzzled.
どうしたリカちゃん。
このことはまだみんなには話さないでください。
どうして？
絶対ミオンたちだってリカちゃんの話を信じてくれる。だったら頼れる仲間は一人でも多い方がいいじゃないか。
ええ、あなたは僕の話を信じてくれました。だからみんなもひょっとしたら信じてくれるかもしれない。でもその先はどうやって戦えばいいのか考えはあるのですか？
それはだけど、それならなおのことみんなと相談すべきじゃないのか？
Put all our collective noggins together.
ここでとどまっていても何も始まらない。それよりも前向きに意見を出し合えばきっといい方法だって見つかるはずだ。
でも見つからなかったら。
リカちゃん。
ええ、分かっていますのです。僕はものすごく臆病になっていると自分でも思います。でも前の世界ではみんなにこの真実を打ち明けました。そのせいでみんな僕の目の前で死んでしまいました。
Even now, the scene was still burned into my eyes. I've witnessed countless deaths, but seeing their bodies torn asunder right before my eyes was far too cruel for me to have any enthusiasm left. Indeed, I told Hanyuu back then, next time we'll succeed. But the reason I had that confidence was because I had Hanyuu supporting me. Even if I failed next time, I had the strength to repeat that challenge as many times as possible. I was abundantly aware of that.
確かに敵が誰なのかはもう分かっていますのです。でもこんな世界は初めてだからどう動いていいのかが分からないのです。良かれと思って真相を打ち明けて行動してもそれが危険につながることだってありえます。そしてきっと この世界が僕にとって最後の機会。だから、当たって砕けろなんて冒険はできないのです。
どうして？
僕にこの力を授けてくれた。いつも、何度転生しても僕のそばにいたはずの仲間が、いないのです。ということはひょっとしたら、今度失敗すると、僕はもう、生まれ変わってやり直すことができないかもしれないのです。
So, I'm scared. Is it right or wrong to tell Keiichi the name of my enemy, right here and now? Can I tell him? Perhaps I'll only be hastening my inevitable death. No, Keiichi and the others should still be able to live happy lives. But if I get them involved then, in the worst case scenario...
それじゃあ、リカちゃんを殺そうとする相手が誰なのか、まだ教えてくれないのか？
I turned my gaze downward and bit at my lip. I'm really being such a coward. Hanyuu isn't here. I can't start over again. Thinking about that, the anxiety and cowardice I've kept buried until now paralyzed my legs. The strong, firm power of believing in my friends was looking quite fragile. And even for Keiichi, who looked so strong and gentle, with his hands held out to me. Misery and self-loathing rushed through my whole body, oozing out of my tortured heart. However, suddenly, I uttered the shameful words from within my heart.
怖いのです。信じることが、今は。
Give her a hug, Keiichi. She needs it. The silence continued. It was perhaps the first time I'd ever heard Rika-chan ask for help. We're friends. Precious friends. There can be only one answer.
大丈夫だ。力になるから。俺を信じろ。
I answered just like that. It was a completely obvious answer. But I answered honestly. And, she didn't seem aware of it herself. I thought that telling Rika-chan to trust me was the best thing I could say to get through to her.
正直言って、今の俺がリカちゃんのどんな力になればいいのかわからない。全力でリカちゃんのために戦う気持ちに変わりはない。みんなの幸せを守りたいと思う心は誰にも負けない自信がある。でも、リカちゃんにそれを信じろと言っても、すぐには難しいってことも分かってる。
Rika-chan stared at me with a firm expression. I'm sure she's discouraged. But even so, I put the strength into my fists and strung together the words to convey it.
でもな、リカちゃん。これだけは言っておきたい。俺は、リカちゃんを信じている。だから今言ったこと、未来で起こるかもしれない事件のこと、すべて俺は信じる。そして覚悟も決めた。もしこの先どんなことが起きて、そして運命ってやつに巻き込まれたとしても、君を恨んだりはしない。少なくとも、俺は絶対にな。
圭一。
怖いのは当然だ。俺だって同じ立場だったらきっと足がすくむ。だけど俺を信じろ、リカちゃん。この前原圭一は絶対にリカちゃんの力になってみせる。今は信じられないかもしれない。それでもいいからよーく見てろ。俺と部活メンバーの本当の底力と結束の固さを、そして見せてやる。この世界の俺と組めばどんな運命だってひっくり返せるんだってことをな。
今まで負け続けなのに、それを信じろというのですか。
それはこの世界の俺たちじゃねえ。赤の他人だ。それに、リカちゃんもさっき言ったじゃないか。だったら信じてみろよ。この世界の可能性ってやつを。俺たちは負けない。絶対に勝ってみせるからな。
My voice echoed throughout the shrine grounds. I was forgetting my place and throwing around foolish, naive words. But I was serious. I meant it sincerely. A breeze ran by, brushing against my hot, flushed cheeks. Rika-chan continued staring silently for a while. She suddenly broke into a smile and let out a weird laugh. Then, she gently wiped the tears from her eyes and looked at me with a relaxed expression.
呆れるくらいに正直なのですよ。それに、とんでもないバカなのです。でもだからこそ、僕はこの秘密を打ち明けようと思いました。僕を子供扱いか、妄言吐きと見て聞き流すような人だったら、ここまで危険を冒してみようとは考えなかったでしょう。
褒められてる気がしないけどな。
いいえ、嬉しいのです。圭一はずっとそうでした。そしてそれがあなたの強さでした。
So, Rika-chan stared straight at me and continued speaking.
圭一、見せてくれますか？僕が信じてもいいと思えるあなたの奇跡、そしてこの世界の可能性を。
Little by little, Rika-chan gently held out her hand. Her fingertips were illuminated by the moonlight, glowing in a fantastical pale blue hue. I was lost in admiration for a moment by the sheer beauty of it.
リカちゃん。
I grabbed hold of Rika-chan's hand, and then I spoke.
わかった。その代わり、その時が来たら、きっと話してくれよ。まだリカちゃんが、その胸に抱えていることを。
ええ、もちろんなのです。ありがとう。圭一。
Rika-chan gently smiled at my answer.
今は、この手を握ってくれるだけでいいのです。僕の近くで、僕が道化のように戦う姿を見ているだけの観客でいてください。でも、一つだけお願いします。僕が舞台から転げ落ちそうになった時は、席を離れても受け止めてください。それさえ約束してくれれば、僕は、まだ頑張ろうと思えますのです。僕のお願い、聞いてくれますか？
ああ、きっと。
We held our hands under the moonlight for a little while longer. This marked the beginning of a long battle. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that things played out this way in the slightest, considering that this is Keiichi we're talking about here. But I must say, this is yet another quite a stark difference from how Chapter 8 handled things. I'm genuinely curious to see how things will play from here on out. It's gonna be very interesting comparing the entirety of this arc to the entirety of Chapter 8 and seeing which one I end up liking better. Whether it be in certain parts or as a whole. Anyway, I think this is a good enough spot to stop here, so that's what I'll do. Still no scene of the hospital of Rina at the hospital. I don't know how much further I have to go here until we see that, but I guess I'll just keep going until I see it. So, yeah. I hope everybody who tuned in today enjoyed today's episode of the Higurashi and the Cry console arcs. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all next time. Take care.